There is a street in the Leimert Park neighborhood of Los Angeles that looks, on any ordinary morning, like every other quiet residential block in the city. A row of modest homes, a vacant lot between them, the distant hum of traffic, the pale winter light of a Southern California January morning. It looks like nothing. It looks like nowhere. But on the morning of January 15th, 1947, on a stretch of South Norton Avenue between Coliseum Street and West 39th Street, something happened that would permanently scar that block, that city, and the entire American imagination for the next 8 decades and counting. A local housewife named Betty Bersinger was taking her young child for a morning walk when she noticed something lying in the vacant lot just feet from the sidewalk. At first glance, she thought it was a department store mannequin tour. The figure was so pale, so unnaturally still, so completely drained of color that it did not look like it could possibly be a human being. Then she looked closer, and she ran. The body was that of a young naked woman, sliced clean in half at the waist, posed in a sexually suggestive arrangement just feet from the sidewalk. Despite the extensive mutilation and cuts on the body, there was not a single drop of blood at the scene, indicating that the young woman had been killed elsewhere, her body drained and cleaned before being carefully, deliberately placed on that Los Angeles street for the world to find. An autopsy revealed that Short had suffered significant trauma, including blows to the head and face, that her body had been completely drained of blood, and that she had been cut precisely in half at the waist using a surgical technique called hemicorporectomy, a procedure taught in medical schools, with the lower half of her body removed by transecting the lumbar spine between the second and third lumbar vertebrae. The precision was extraordinary. The staging was deliberate. Whoever did this had knowledge, skill, and time. And they were never, in nearly 80 years of investigation, ever identified. Stall, that's interesting. The FBI was called to assist, and in a remarkable demonstration of early forensic capability, identified the body just 56 minutes after receiving blurred fingerprints via a primitive fax machine from Los Angeles. The young woman was Elizabeth Short, a 22-year-old Massachusetts native who had come to Los Angeles with the dream that brought so many young women to Southern California in the 1940s. She was born in Hyde Park, Boston, on July 29, 1924. She was 5 feet 5 inches tall, weighed 115 pounds, had light blue eyes, and dark brown hair. She was not yet famous for being a victim. She was simply a young woman trying to find her way in a city that chewed up dreamers and spat them out with legendary efficiency. She had worked as a waitress while chasing acting roles that never came. She lived in a rented room behind a Hollywood nightclub. She moved from place to place, city to city. Long Beach, San Diego, Los Angeles. A restless, beautiful young woman searching for something that the world hadn't yet given her. She would never get the chance to find it. Wikipedia. A friend had nicknamed her the Black Dahlia as a playful joke. A reference to the film noir thriller The Blue Dahlia, released in 1946, combined with Elizabeth's curly dark hair, her flowers, and her love of black clothing. The newspapers adopted the nickname immediately. And in death, Elizabeth Short became more famous than she had ever been in life. The Black Dahlia, the name that would echo through American culture for decades, inspiring novels, films, true crime documentaries, and an obsession so deep and so enduring that it continues to drive amateur investigators to this very day. The investigation launched by the LAPD produced over 150 suspects, but yielded no arrests. More than 60 people confessed to the murder over the years, every single confession proven false. The case became a cold case by spring 1947, just months after the body was found, and it has remained technically unsolved for every year of the nearly 8 decades since. Ebisco Wall. That's interesting. The details that emerged from the investigation were as disturbing as the crime itself. On January 24, 1947, a suspicious manila envelope arrived at the Los Angeles Examiner, addressed to the newspapers, containing Short's birth certificate, business cards, photographs, and an address book, sent by her killer, taunting investigators with what he had taken from her. The address book was missing pages. A local motel near the University of Southern California reported that on the morning of January 15th, a cabin was found, covered in blood and fecal matter, a potential crime scene that was never fully investigated. Based on the precise surgical nature of the cuts, the LAPD investigated the possibility that the murderer had medical knowledge, leading them to serve a warrant to the USC Medical School, requesting a complete list of students. But background checks yielded no results. The theories multiplied. A doctor, a surgeon, a medical student. A man with access to knowledge that ordinary people simply did not have. But the name behind that knowledge was never confirmed. About all that's interesting. The suspects named over the years form a list that reads like a Hollywood noir screenplay. Dr. Walter Bailey, a surgeon whose ex-wife lived 1 block from the crime scene and who died of a brain disease just 1 year after the murder. Leslie Dillon, an aspiring crime writer who told investigators he was writing a book about the Black Dahlia case, a book that never materialized. A man who was never charged, despite evidence pointing toward him. George Hodel, named by his own son, retired LAPD detective Steve Hodel, in a book published in 2003, arguing that his father was both the Black Dahlia killer and possibly the Zodiac killer. And most recently, in the most explosive development the case has seen in decades, independent investigator Alex Baber claimed in 2025 and 2026 that the same man he believes was the Zodiac killer. Marvin Margolis, a World War II veteran who was buried alive in a cave in Okinawa and left with a deep capacity for rage and violence, was also Elizabeth Short's murderer, presenting decoded cipher evidence and arguing that Margolis's military-acquired surgical skills match the precise medical nature of both crimes. In May 2026, the LAPD confirmed it was testing physical evidence, including a government fingerprint card from Margolis taken at his military service intake in 1943. No conclusion has been publicly reached, but for the first time in decades, actual physical evidence is being tested against an actual named suspect. CU Independent. CU Independent. What makes the Black Dahlia case different from every other unsolved murder in American history is not just the horror of what was done to Elizabeth Short, though that horror is real and permanent and deserves to be acknowledged fully. It is the way the case has embedded itself in the American psyche so deeply that it functions less like a crime story and more like a national wound that never fully healed. The story of the Black Dahlia was a gripping and cautionary tale for young women in the post-war era. A beautiful girl who came to Hollywood with dreams and left it in pieces on a vacant lot in January. But it is also the story of a justice system that failed completely, that lost evidence, cleared suspects prematurely, allowed corruption to influence an investigation, and ultimately let a killer walk free for the rest of his natural life without ever facing a single consequence for one of the most gruesome murders in American history. All that's interesting. Elizabeth Short was 22 years old. She had brown hair, blue eyes, and a nickname that someone gave her as a joke. She deserved a life. She deserved a future. She deserved to grow old and to find whatever she was searching for in the streets of Los Angeles. Instead, she became a symbol of Hollywood's dark side, of post-war America's violence toward women, of a justice system that could identify a body in 56 minutes, but could not in nearly 80 years identify the man who destroyed it. Somewhere in the history of Los Angeles, the Black Dahlia's killer went to his grave without ever being held accountable. And on South Norton Avenue in Leimert Park, the vacant lot where Betty Bersinger took her morning walk on January 15, 1947, still sits quietly in the California sunshine, holding a secret that the city of Los Angeles has never been able to unlock.